Hi guys, welcome back to Bookmas. Welcome to today's video. I have a winter book recommendation. No, that's like me saying book recommendations video. I have a book rec video for the winter time, the cozy season, when it's cold out and you just want to get cozy under a blanket and read a book. I have those cozy snowy months. Are they cozy? I think they're cozy. You can get under a blanket, light a candle, read some good books, get warm. So that's what we have here today. I have a few mystery thrillers, and then I have romances, and then I have a few holiday specific like Christmas type books, and then I also have a few fantasies that I think are perfect for the winter time. Without further ado, let's get into the recs. I think I'm going to start with romances. I feel like that's the best place to start. Holiday romances, obviously I have to start with these because it is the holiday season. We have to get in the holiday season. I have to give you guys these recs first so you can go and get some good holiday books before December's over. Starting off with One Day in December by Josie Silver. I actually read this like in, I think 2021, and this is when my reading journey was maybe it was 2020. It was a really long time ago, and this is when my reading journey was kind of picking up again before I made book videos. And I remember starting this book, putting it down, and this was at the time where I would put books down and not continue them until months and months later. So I ended up picking it back up and I binged the rest of it. I remember this so vividly because I remember finishing it and being like, why did I wait so long to finish this book? This book is so good. So it's about this girl who doesn't think that love at first sight exists, and then she sees this guy on a bus that's like going past her, and they make eye contact, and she really holds on to that, and she believes that it's love at first sight. So she spends the next year going through every bus stop, every restaurant, every cafe trying to find him, and they end up reuniting at a Christmas party that her roommate throws, and she brings her new boyfriend. Her roommate brings her new boyfriend, which is the man from the bus, and now she has to pretend this is not the man that she's been looking for this whole year. Like, she has to just pretend she does not know who it is. It's not the man that she thinks that she's like fated to be with. And you kind of just follow their journey of her trying to kind of get over this whole love at first sight thing. Does he remember her? Does she have the wrong guy? Like this whole journey. And I think it is so good for the holiday season. I think it's filled with a lot of like humor, but also a lot of like relationship stuff, but also like the sweet holiday romance. And I think it's such a unique story, and I remember absolutely loving this. Then we have a cute little, I think this is more of like a holiday novella. It's pretty short. It's under 250 pages. Yeah, it's like, oh, it's 250 pages around that. It's called The Holiday Switch by Tiff Marcello. I read this last year. I remember binging it. It's so good just to like sit and like read a little novella in the holiday season. And this one is a little YA romance. So this main character works at this inn, and where she lives in this town is kind of like winter wonderland. And at the inn that she works in, it's where this like famous holiday movie was filmed. So a lot of tourists go there. She works at the gift shop there, I believe. And then her boss's nephew, Teddy, comes into town, and her boss makes him work with her. So they have this like workplace rivalry kind of thing going on. But what I enjoyed most about this book is like the family dynamic that she threw in here. It really, like, I feel like encompasses what you think of in the family holiday season, like family in December. Like, I don't know, it just really encompassed that. And also them together was just so cute, them hanging out like after work and like doing their little thing. And I think at one point it's called The Holiday Switch because they swap phones at work, and then they have to figure out how to give it back to each other, but like they see I don't know, but it's really cute. It's really obviously fast paced. It's a short and sweet book, but I think it really encompasses like the cute and just like, I don't know, the holiday vibes that you probably need, the Christmas vibes that you probably need. It is really sweet. Then we have The Christmas Switch by Lindsay Kelk. I also read this one last year. This isn't my favorite Christmas book I've ever read, but definitely puts you in the holiday spirit. And this has kind of like a Groundhog's Day situation, so if you like those kinds of books, you probably will like this. But I've seen a lot of people say that they enjoyed this book, and it is really, really cute for, again, the holiday season. I think a lot of things go wrong, so she has to go home for the holidays, and when she gets there, she sees her next door neighbor, which I think she used to have a crush on or something like that, but she gets there, he has a new fiance, like things are not gonna work out between them, so things are just going very wrong for her. She wakes up the next morning, it's Christmas Day again, and it just keeps repeating and repeating until she can figure out why or how she can stop it. And then the very last holiday book that I have, holiday romance, is The Holiday Swap by Maggie Knox. This one I think I read a couple years ago, and it's honestly one of my favorite holiday romances that I like think of when I think of the holiday season. And I'll tell you why. It's because if you guys have ever watched, I think it's called The Princess Switch, the one with Vanessa Hudgens on Netflix. I think there's 3 movies. That is my go-to movie for like that winter season, the holiday season. I don't know why. I eat it up every single time. I think it's because of a mix of baking, they swap places, and it's just like the royalty mixed with, I don't know if that's just me, but I love it. So this reminded me so much of that movie. So when I was reading it felt like I was watching the movie. And even just like aside from that movie, reading this really feels like you're watching like a Hallmark Christmas movie. And it's basically about 2 twins, and they swap places. One I think is more of a famous like baker, and she works on a reality baking show, so that sister swaps places to go to the baking show. The other one swaps places to come home where the other sister was living and working in their, I think, family owned bakery. And while they're switching places, they obviously have to pretend that they're the other sister, but they both meet love interests, so it's a little difficult because they're pretending to be the other sister, and they have to figure out how to fix what's going on without telling their new romantic partners, but you also get the cute little town of Christmas vibes. You also get the baking, like reality show, whatever that is, and all of it just mixed together is so good. This is just literally like watching a little Hallmark Christmas movie. Now we're gonna go on to the mystery slash thrillers that I have, because I only have 3 to talk about. So the first one we have is The Hunting Party by Lucy Foley. This one I think is perfect because the setting is literally in just like a snowed in place. I'm pretty sure there's like a few couples and they decide to go to the Scottish wilderness to spend a New Year's together. I think every year the couples spend New Year's together, but this year someone new decided to plan it, so they go and they spend time there, but while they're there they get snowed in, no connection, things are happening, and then one of the friends ends up being murdered, so they have to figure out what's going on, who did it, who's the culprit, and all of that while they're snowed in. So it's definitely a good mystery thriller for the winter season, obviously because of the snowy vibes. But yeah, that's the first one I have. And then I have The Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I've talked about this book so much, I know it's super popular, but if you haven't read it yet, this is your time to do it. I feel like this trilogy, there's 3 books. You don't have to read all 3. I highly recommend reading all 3, but if you read and finish the first one, you can kind of end there, but you can also continue on if you want to. I just think this is such a good trilogy to kind of just sit and binge and just get into the world of. Also because they're making a TV show, I believe, out of it, and the cast is amazing. I'm just so excited to watch it. So now is your sign to read this. It's basically about Pip, who is a senior in high school, and she's doing her capstone project, and she decides to do it on this classmate that she used to have that was murdered, and it was believed to be another one of her classmates. She's now unlocking things that happened back in the day, going through all different people in her town, seeing how they're kind of involved, and kind of just like uncovering new things about it. What I love so much about this book is going through what she's uncovering. It is so interesting because you're just doing it with her. You feel like you're in the investigation with her, unlocking things, learning about these new people, and it is so good. And it's a trilogy, so if you love this one, you can continue the story. And last but certainly not least, we have Rock Paper Scissors by Alice Feeney. I've been recommending this book since I first read it. I think I read it in a video on my channel at some point, and I remember giving it 5 stars immediately. I think it's because I didn't read, or I don't read too much mystery thriller, so when one really takes me off guard and I don't want to put it down, and it's on every chapter like ends on a little cliffhanger, it just, I eat it up. This is the kind of thriller mystery that I love, is this book. So I always recommend it, especially around this time, because like you can see on the cover, it is in a snowy setting. So it's about this couple who wife wins a trip to kind of this secluded, I think it's a chapel. She wins like a weekend there trying to mend her relationship with her husband, and when they get there, they're snowed in, they can't really leave, they have to just kind of stay there. But her husband has facial blindness, so he can't really make out faces, and that's kind of like a main point of what he has. And while they're there, they both have kind of like secrets that you see in their point of views, and there's like weird things about this little chapel that they're in. They're like kind of seeing things, they don't know what's happening, and a lot of craziness is happening, and you kind of just go through that and trying to see them mend their relationship, but also in this like forced proximity of this house, because they obviously haven't had the greatest relationship, the greatest marriage so far. It's kind of a little broken right now, so you see all that and things are happening. And what I love so much, like I said, is every chapter kind of ends on like a mini cliffhanger, or just like something you're like, oh, and you want to keep going. At least for me, this is one of my favorite thrillers ever, and I feel like the winter season is just perfect time to read it. Okay, now we're gonna get into the regular romances that I have for the winter season. I have quite a few here, and some of these aren't technically like settings in the winter season in December, January, whatever. Like I just kind of associate it with the winter season, which we will get into and I will talk about, which leads me to the first one, If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. If you're looking for a good cry, if you're looking into a book that kind of feels almost nostalgic reading it, the way it's written, it's YA, and it's about this girl and this guy who, when they were younger, all growing up, they're best friends. They were next door neighbors, their moms are best friends, and they spent so much time together. But as they're growing up, you see them kind of like change into a different person, because when you're growing up, you're going into middle school, high school, so they get different friends, they're in different lives, different worlds, but they still have this connection to each other. But you kind of see them with different partners, and they're not always together, but when they are in the same scenes, you can see that there's still like this lingering there. You find out in the beginning, but stuff happens at the end, and it's heartbreaking story. And there is a second one coming out next year that's actually in Finney, the main guy's point of view, so I'm very excited about that. I don't know if my heart can take it, but I am excited about it. But I associate it with the winter time, I think, just because I read it in the winter time last year, and I think just the vibes of this, the nostalgia that I feel reading this about just 2 characters going through the changes and in like high school, and all of those vibes, just like they feel like winter vibes to me. I can't explain it, but if you need a good cry or just need like that kind of tug on your heart book, I highly recommend this one. Okay, then we have none other than Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is another book that's talked about so much. I feel like so many people have read it. It's one of my favorite books, my comfort book. So I feel like in the comforting season when you want to like bundle up and just like get cozy, if you haven't read this book, this is like the perfect one to do it. I recommend this in every season, I think just because I've reread it in the summer and I really enjoyed it, but I also have reread it in the winter and really enjoyed it. And there's like a scene and a few scenes in here that kind of follow along like winter time, so I feel like it's perfect setting for this book. But this is a second chance romance. It tells the story of Elliot and Macy. They meet when they're younger. You get the past timeline of them meeting. She moves into a little, I think it's like a lake house or something next door to him, and she spends her weekends there with her father. And then in the present timeline, they haven't spoken in 11 years. She's older, she's doing her own thing, and he kind of like strolls back into her life, and they have to figure out, or he's trying to figure out why she hasn't spoken to him in 11 years. But then you see back in the day, my favorite part is the past timeline of them just connecting at such a young age. They read get together, they tell each other their favorite words, they're just connecting on such like a innocent level, and you just see them growing together. But then obviously something happens, and it's just like such a cozy book. Like this is just like my comfort read. I love this book. So if you haven't read it yet, you gotta do it. Then we have The 7-Year Slip by Ashley Poston. This one has like a magical realism in it, which I feel like is more of like a fall Halloween-y type of book, but also the coziness again that I feel with this book I think is perfect for the winter season. This book is about our main character Clementine, and she's kind of just like figuring out her life. She works I think in like a publishing industry, and her aunt, who is her favorite person ever, they really tell the story of her aunt so like incredibly. I just feel like her aunt was so important to her, and she really like shows you that. So her aunt passes away and leaves her apartment to Clementine, and it's kind of hard for Clementine to get there and put all of her stuff in there because she's had so many memories with her aunt. She gets into her apartment one day after a bad day at work, and she is thrown into the past 7 years, and in her apartment is a man, and she's like, literally, what are you doing here? And he's like, your aunt sent me a note, your aunt told me I can be here for however long it is, and she's like, literally get out. But then they kind of like spend time together. You get that timeline of her in the past 7 years, and then you get present day her trying to figure out like what's going on. Like she's now in the future of 7 years, like what's he doing now, this whole thing. You're kind of just following her, figuring out her life in her 30s, what she wants to do, and also her kind of romance that's like spewing with this guy that she's met. And it is just the most tender, sweet, heart-warming, cozy little romance ever. The story is so sweet, and it's just so good, and I think some of the quotes in here are just amazing. If you like Emily Henry's writing, I think you would really enjoy this. It is so good. One of my favorite books that I've read this year. It is just so good. This is leaning over a little bit. I hope this doesn't tip over. Okay, then we have a more recent read, which is Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. This one is her new release. It just came out, and honestly, this isn't more of like a wintry romance, but I feel like reading in the winter would be kind of good. I don't really know what season this takes place in. I kind of don't remember that, but I know that I really thoroughly enjoyed it, so I've been so excited to film a recommendations video so that you guys can read this book if you are interested. But this is also another second chance kind of romance-ish. But what I loved about this one is the two main characters are family friends from when they were younger. You see their family dynamic, and their moms are best friends, and they live in these two households that are always together, and they kind of, again, family friends dynamic, so they have this kind of like history with each other, and they both went to the same college, but then something happened and he went back home and she stayed in where their college was, and she's been building a life there. She's this pretty famous interior designer, so she has her whole life there, and something happens with her, so she comes back home and he's there obviously, and he's also a billionaire. It's a billionaire romance, and he is just like seeing her for the first time again, and you just see them kind of going through seeing each other again. I love the found family in this. I guess like the two families, but like them together, the family friends dynamic, and all the side characters are so amazing. The relationship is amazing. The storyline is, there's humor in it, there's the love in it, and it's so good. I really love this. This is my favorite Lauren Asher book, so if you're looking for a pretty fast-paced little romance but one you can kind of connect to, highly recommend. I love Julian. Julian was perfect. We're gonna make another pile over here because this is tilting. This is gonna fall. Okay, and then we have one of my favorite romances ever. I really want to reread this at some point in my life. I don't know when, but I would love to. And that is Ghosted by J.M. Darhauer. I love this book. Do you see a theme? Because this is second chance romance, and something about second chance romance, I eat it up. I don't know why. It's one of my favorites, but also when they have a history together, not just like a, we're not gonna get into that, but this woman who is working in a grocery store, kind of working paycheck to paycheck, trying to raise her child, and the father of that child is actually the most famous kind of Captain America type actor. Like he's in like the Marvel movies of this book, and you see back in the day when they met, these two characters, and they met in high school, and it's told in the point of view of the main girl, and she's writing in her notebook to him. I loved that so much, the way that the story was told of them meeting and what they did back then, how they connected. So good. I immediately was connected, and also the dedication in this book is one of my favorite dedications probably in my entire reading journey. This book is dedicated to everyone who has ever loved a story so much they could quote it. There's nothing in the world quite like being part of a fandom, and it goes into all this things like, don't let anyone shame you for reading those books, watching those movies, being a part of a fandom. And at the end it says, sing that on hiatus, totally not broken up boy band at the top of your lungs and do what makes you happy. And I read that and I was just like, oh, okay, I love this. But you see them present timeline again. He kind of comes back into her life and is like, I'm ready to be a father now. And I don't like single parent, but that really tells how much I love this, because the kid was adorable, and also just them trying to mend the relationship felt really real. Like this book felt, even though he's like the biggest actor ever, I don't know anything about the acting world, but it felt really realistic, and I loved that so much. I loved this story. I love these characters. You guys should read it. Okay, and then we have Before We Were Strangers by Renee Carlino. This is one of the books that's on my radar to reread this year, because I remember reading this and kind of binging it, and I really enjoyed the story, so I really want to try to read it again. I don't really know why. I think I'm gonna enjoy it more the second time, but this one is guess what this is? It's another second chance romance. This one is about two characters who go to the same college back in the day, and in present day he is walking, I think, on like the subway or like train or something, and he's watching it kind of drive past, and he sees her in the little window thing, and he's like, oh my gosh, that is Grace. And he goes back to his work and he's trying to find her. He can't find her. He wants to know like what's happened between them, but like it's been so long since they've seen each other and all this stuff. And he's trying to find her, and that's present timeline. But in the past, he moves into the dorm room next door to her, and it's in the city. So you have the New York City setting, which I think is just such a great setting in books. I don't know why I eat it up every time, but he moves in next door and she kind of shows him the ropes because she's been there. He's a photographer, she's a musician. Just like the vibe of them together is so amazing. Like I loved them like so much, and just him being a photographer, taking like little pictures of everything. I don't know. I loved it so much, and you kind of just see them reconnecting, what went wrong, what didn't, and yeah. That is this one. Next we have Marriage for One by Ella Mays. This one I remember reading in the winter time of last year, and that's why I'm here recommending it. I think because I correlate this with the winter time. But this is another New York City setting. This is another, I think he's a millionaire, and it's like a rich man trope, but it's also a marriage of convenience, obviously Marriage for One. I think in order for her to get the will of, I don't know who passed away, but in order for her to get it, she has to be married. Him being her lawyer is like, I'll do it. That's their plan. They do not like each other because she's like, literally, what do you have in this? Like, what is your stake in this? And she's so confused. But obviously being married, they have to live together or forced proximity, but he's kind of grumpy and wants nothing to do with her, and she's trying to open this coffee shop, and it's sweet. When you see him kind of show himself and show that he cares, I ate it up. It's a pretty longer romance, but I really enjoyed reading this one more than I thought I would. Okay, so those are all of the romances, and now let's get into the fantasies that I have to recommend. I feel like if you haven't gotten into too much of fantasy, fall into wintertime I think is perfect for fantasies. It's like another one of those genres that just feel right to read in the cozy season, so I have quite a few here to recommend you guys. Starting off strong with Heart of the Raven Prince. This is part of the Entangled with Fae series. These are all princess retellings. They're all interconnected standalone, so if you have a favorite princess story, you can just read that book. This one is Cinderella. They have Little Mermaid, Sleeping Beauty just came out, Snow White, and I read another one, did I? There's a few of them, and they're all princess retellings, but they're mixed with magic and fae, and it's like a fairy tale story, but with magic, and it's really interesting. You have like the romance, but you also have the retelling of the princess story, and it's really cute. It's really good. Again, if you have any princess stories that you like, I would highly recommend reading this because it's the perfect mix of the two, and I just think being in the fairy tale fantasy world, I love it. I think it is so fun, and I think it is just like the imagery of it is so fun, and that's all I have to say about this one. Then we have One Dark Window by Rachel Gillick. This is a duology. I just read the second one, which is called Two Twisted Crowns, and I ate it up. Like, I was obsessed, but I also enjoyed this one. This is the first one, and I've talked about this frequently on my channel since reading it, but it's basically about this mist that's kind of taking over the city, and there's been people that have been infected. The king of the city is trying to get rid of everyone that's been infected, but our main character, she is infected. How many times am I going to say infected? In order to get rid of it, they have to get rid of the mist. So she is now on a journey to collect all 12 playing cards, which is the magic system of this world. And each playing card has a different like meaning for it, or a different like magic for it. So they have to collect all 12, and they're kind of hard to come around, or the last one's kind of hard to come around. So she's trying to collect them, but she also has nightmare in her head, which is the illness that she has. And it's kind of just like this, almost like a being in her head that like infiltrates her thoughts, and she's like been with him for so long because she's been infected for so long. So she kind of like meets up and connects with this other character in the story, and he and her go on this journey to break the mist, to get the illness out of her, collect the playing cards. And this book was really good. Into the second one was my favorite. The second one was so good. You guys need to read this. The vibes of this are so dark gothic, but not in a scary way. Like, it's not dark scary, it's just like the eeriness of it, and like the world is just kind of gray. So that's kind of the vibes of this. The second one, guys, is so good. You guys need to read this. I ate up the second one. Not that I didn't like this one. This one was also very good. Then, is this even gonna be a fantasy little recommendation section if I don't talk about this book? Is it? Because guys, if you haven't read it yet, you need to read it. I'm not going to talk too much about this, but we know how much I love this book. We know it's a romance fantasy. If you like banter, if you like enemies to lovers, if you like high stakes, if you like tension, if you like who did this to you, if you like the nightmare trope, if you like dagger to the throat trope, if you like, there's a lot of tropes in here that just, it's a checklist. It's a checklist of everything you would want in a romance fantasy book. A romantasy is in this. So if you like that, just read this. I'm not gonna say anything else because I talk about it all the time, but seriously, it is your chance. It is literally your chance right now to pick this up, to buy this and read this. Okay, then we have none other than another book I recommend all the time, which is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. This is a duology. It's perfect for the winter season. I think another book to just like get cozy with and get into this world. I miss this world so much. I want to reread Crooked Kingdom so bad, which is the second book into this duology, but it's basically just about this heist. This main guy, Kaz, is just like this mastermind who has to go into like this very high, what's the word? High stake? No. high security place and kind of get something for someone, but it's a very high stake mission that he's on. So he gets the other characters all together. They're from all different parts of the city or parts of this world, and they all have different things to them. They are all just so different in their own ways, personalities, where they're from, what they do, all of it. They're also different, but when they're together and when you get the found family, when you get further in the book, it is like none other. Like, it is just so good. But also the mastermindness, is that even a word? I don't think so, of Kaz is incredible. Just seeing what he's like figuring out is just so good. And then again, there's little subplots of romance, not too heavy, but I just think the world of this, the storyline, the characters, you grow to connect so much, especially into the second book. It's just one of my favorite duologies ever. Okay, then we have Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. This is in the world of the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy by her. That is her YA trilogy, and you don't have to read that to read this book, but if you're gonna read this and you want to go back to the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, this is gonna spoil some things from that trilogy. So you don't have to read that trilogy to understand this book, but if you want to know more about the world and you want to get the like background almost, but like the other story of the other brother, definitely read the trilogy first, but you don't have to understand this or enjoy this. So this is about one of the princes from hell, and the first trilogy is about Wrath, that prince and his story, but this is about Envy, another prince from hell. There's 7 of them, the 7 sin princes of hell, and everyone is told to kind of fear them and everything. But this is about Envy, and his court is kind of getting diminished. Something bad is happening to his court. In order to save his court, he has to follow along this kind of dangerous game, kind of like, what is it called? Trivia? No. Yeah, riddles, all that. He has to do that kind of, I don't know, game. And it throws him into the path of Camilla, and Camilla is our second main character, and she is living in a different world from him, and he kind of crosses her path and she's like, what's in it for me? And all this stuff. But now they're on the journey together to finish this game, complete it, so he can save his court. Now again, this one is not young adult like her first original trilogy. This one is new adult? Just adult. I'm not too sure how old they are, but it has like the spicy scene, so it's not a young adult fantasy. The next book we have is one that I most recently read, and this is called House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. This one is more just like a cozy magical fantasy. I think it has more magic realism in it. Like, the world is not magical, but the main character, he works in the magic youth, I don't know what it's called, department in charge of magical youth. So he kind of works for the orphan system with magical kids, and he kind of goes to these different orphanages and makes sure that it's running well and everything, but the kids are all magical, they all have magical powers. So he's now put on this kind of like higher mission, secretive mission, to go to this one place that is kind of secluded on an island, and all of the kids that are there are told to be more dangerous, so that's why it's more of a high stake type of thing, that journey he's going on. But he gets there, he meets the kids, he's very wary at first because of everything he's been told, but he meets the master of the house and the kids are just, all of their magical powers are so interesting, but they are so different from each other, but they're also so cute. Like, learning about each kid and what they really enjoy, and how not everything is what it's told, and how the master kind of tells them like it's what's on the inside that matters, like you're not scary kids and all this. It's really cute, and you see Linus, our main character, grow to love them, and it's just so cozy, so cute. The story is so cute, the message behind everything is so cute, and I adored this book. So this one is more of like a cozy fantasy if you were into that, rather than like a high stake one. Then we have Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This one I feel like is perfect to read at this time because the second one is coming out the day after Christmas, I believe. This one's kind of like a historical fantasy. It's about these 2 main characters who work at this paper press place. They're journalists, and they are kind of rivals in this place. They've always been rivals, kind of like outdoing each other or trying to outdo each other. But right off the bat, you kind of see the 2 of them and their little, not connection, but the way they like think about each other almost, I don't know. But the magic system in this is the typewriter. So her brother goes off to the war that's going on, and she's typing in her typewriter, and it's kind of like a magical one. So when she puts the letter under her door, it just disappears, and she thinks it's going to her brother. But what she doesn't know is going to Roman, our other main character, and he's writing back, figures out that it's Iris, but he doesn't tell her that he knows. So the whole time we know that she's writing to Roman, but she doesn't know that she's doing that. Then you get the setting and the scene and the plot lines of the war and all of that. So all that mixed together. There's also the magic of kind of like the gods that are at war with each other. That's like the whole thing that's going on, but I feel it's not as intense or as talked about as like the actual romance going on and the typewriter situation. So the writing here is just so beautiful, and I'm so excited for the second one to come out. And last, but certainly not least, the last book I have to recommend for this winter season is Serpent and Wings of the Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is a duology right now. I think there's gonna be more books in this series in the world, but not about these characters. And then in between the 2 books, there is a novella about 2 different characters that kind of show up in the second book. But this is another one of my favorite, I think, fantasy reads of the year. It's about this girl who was taken in by like the vampire king when she was younger. He kind of found her and took her in as her own and raised her like that, and she grew up being trained to go into, what's it called, the Kajari? Yeah, the Kajari is kind of like a tournament that like the main goddess kind of holds for everyone, and it's all vampires who compete in it. Obviously she's not a vampire, so she has to kind of train a little harder, and by the end of it the goddess can grant you like your one wish, and it's all kind of like a Hunger Games. You have different trials, you fight to the death and all of that. But while she's in the trials, she meets our other main character, and he wants an alliance with her, and she's like, why do you want an alliance with me? Like, you're being suspicious and all of this. But it's kind of like has this enemies to lovers situation going on. The trials are really fast paced. It's like the pacing of this book is really fast paced as well. It just goes to the next one, it's really good. The writing is really good. It's honestly really easy to understand and kind of grasp. And then obviously there is a second one, but I really enjoyed this and I can't wait to get more of this whole world. So that is our last recommendation for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed or got at least one recommendation from this video. Let me know if you did, and let me know if you have any good recommendations for me for the winter time. I'm ready to add a lot to my TBR and a lot to my 2024 TBR. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know if you did. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow for the next day of Bookmas. Bye!